Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. Tonight's guest is James Alfred, the blogger from Sage Sigma Unbound and promoter of the Hattie Bob material and some great work on Laurel Canyon. Oops, not the echo. Sorry. James, welcome to the show.
Welcome, James.
Yeah, thank you, Nish. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate the invite.
Anytime.
Sorry, I had a cough
trouble.
there.
We had a little Zoom trouble getting in here tonight, but it's all good now.
Live as it goes. So let's jump right in. James, would you give us a little bit of a background on your early inner life? So the earliest things you can recall that inspired you or stick out as far back as you can recall.
Well, I would say, my mom was a big Stephen King fan back in the day. So
does that mean you were not?
I mean, I got into it, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. I was reading things like, It, The Stand,
Cool.
Oh, I love The Stand.
Yeah.
Things that were a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more different than what everybody else was reading.
Yeah.
So I think that was, more or less kind of where I got into it. Also, my father was a big fan of In Search of the Old Leonard Nimoy.
Oh, Be Still My Heart. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
In Search of. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of being exposed to Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, UFOs. I mean, I don't know. Those are all things that were early in my life and kind of opened me up to a little bit different perspective, I guess, than the majority of people maybe would have experienced at that time period.
Did you did you have more of a rural life, or were you in the city? What was your landscape like?
Landscape would have been like a town of about 60 to 80,000 people. Nothing too extravagant, but I mean, Midwestern. I grew up in Wisconsin. Not a lot of grew up as a Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot
Very
of
Wisconsin.
Yeah, kind of the Midwest Protestant. A lot in terms of different cultural values and whatnot. So things like that. Like a Stephen King book or Leonard Nimoy at the time. That was like a little bit different than what everybody else was kind of paying attention to. So, and I was attracted to it. So.
Did you, in this period of time when you were being exposed to more of the fringy stuff, which Leonard Nimoy's show is about, and all the good stuff Stephen King was writing, were you at all having dreams that were affected by these things? Do you remember any early dreams?
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about before this was there was like an experience. I feel like I was in a crib. Hard to explain, but I feel like I had a fever. Was lying there, and there were like all these little 2 to 3 inch green grayish figures running around in the crib. I seem to like recall even like there being like a slide or something like that. And then I remember, like a light popping in, mom and dad coming in and checking in on me. But I've always kind of recalled that kind of odd memory, whatever it was. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe it was like reality. I mean, at this point, that could have very well been like some sort of a bleeding between realities and this reality. I have no idea at this point, but that was like one of the first memories I have of like kind of an odd experience. And that would have been long before Stephen King or long before getting involved with um, in search of or files or UFOs or whatnot. But that that would have been one of the first memories I have in terms of like a dream. I recall it very vividly, and is one of the first things I was going to mention tonight when we
Did it have a scary vibe to you, or were you intrigued by it?
intrigued. It wasn't scary. It was just, I mean, I would almost say that the closest thing I can think of is like maybe in Star Wars, the first, the 1977, 78, when they have that chess match, clay match, where those figurines are like running around, and Luke Skywalker and whatnot are like looking at that. I mean, that was long before I even saw the film. But when I saw that moment in that Star Wars film, I always thought about that scene in the crib that I had. I have no idea, no idea what to think about that. It could have been hallucination. It could have been, God knows what, when you're like 2-3 years of age and you have a fever. I just recall that.
Yeah.
I got the
But definitely
fever.
wasn't scary. It was not a scary moment. Yeah.
Well, it's part of what all this is about. Is that, I mean, we don't, your memories and your dreams are, they kind of go hand in hand. They're both intangible in the end, and yet they can be so poignant and significant. When you were, so did you have in Wisconsin? It's hard. I know this because I grew up in the area. So for me, it just seems obvious. But did you have a relationship with the natural world around you? Or were you more inside?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up close to what they call a marsh in this area. It was basically the area I grew up in is called the Drifts, and the spot in Wisconsin that the ice age did not impact. So there's this idea that the glaciers didn't move far enough south, and so all of this area around this area that I grew up with, it's untouched, and it's very antique, and it's very, very, very old. So I grew up near a hill called Indian Hill, and Indian Hill was allegedly a spot that had a lot of Native American activity. There were bodies that were buried, and they were found by archaeologists and whatnot. And there were a lot of effigy mounds and burial mounds and whatnot. So, yeah, that was very close to where I grew up. So I don't know if that had anything to do with me, but definitely was like it felt a little bit spiritual, but at the same time, I'm just a Western male. I can't speak to it, but I always felt close to that area when I grew up.
Did you have I do. Those temples, the pyramids at Atzilan in Wisconsin are remarkable. The energy there.
Sure. Yep.
You know them, of course. Did you have any kind of, at this age, young you, with this kind of stuff going around with Stephen King and Leonard Nimoy in Search Of, and all this great stuff in these mounds, and having a sense of the energy on the land? Did you find yourself at all feeling, having a deeper sense of what's outside of you? Maybe the spirit world, the spirit realm, other dimensions. How concrete was that line for you?
I mean, to be honest, I was always at peace in this area. Like I just felt it was very serene, very relaxing. The only thing I can think of was there was a moment, and I don't know if this was a dream. I feel like it wasn't a dream. I feel like this was something I actually witnessed on this park that I was at. Remember, like it was it's a hill, so it's like overlooking a marsh. And I remember seeing like this skinless pink pig in the middle of the marsh, and I remember looking at it and staring at it, and the thing looked at me, and I was trying to figure out, what the hell it was. And this thing suddenly like lunges at me, and it just sprinted towards me. And I got on my little bike, and I remember biking away from it, and this thing charging up the hill before the bike and like ran off, but it never came up and like materialized itself. So that was the only, ill thought about moment when it came to that park. So it's funny actually. As life would have it, I ended up being back there with my girlfriend, who was eventually my wife. 20 years later, and I had a really nasty experience on the same area. Didn't involve a pig, but it. I don't know. I would say when I was growing up, I never had a negative experience there. It was always very peaceful, serene, outside of like this very random white pig thing that was like flying towards me. But
can you share the experience that happened 20 years later? If you don't want to, that's fine. Also,
yeah, I think. Oh no! It was a dream that I had. The apartment complex that she was actually living in. I remember as a kid that a young boy of that lived close to us, who was like a little bit mentally challenged. He was raped in this apartment complex by an older man. So I always had that in the back of my mind. But yeah, she ended up moving here from Oregon, and we were dating and whatnot. And so I had this crazy dream where I think I was like on top of her and I was kissing her, and she has this look of fear in the back of her eyes. She's like staring up towards light, like what's going on, And she's like, yeah, and something like flung me up that threw me up against the wall. And I remember screaming at her, like, way. Typically with dreams for me, I would say 99% of the time I don't dream of real situations. It's always like kind of a odd, surreal spot. But there've been a couple ones where you actually are like in a real life environment. That was one that was pretty crazy, where I just remember being flung off the bed and this presence being there, and I couldn't tell exactly what was throwing me off the bed. But remember being like kind of curled up against the wall and screaming at my future wife to run away. So,
oh wow!
That would be the only experiences. Anyways, yeah,
that's
those
significant.
Were my experiences
that in that area, you kind of, I don't know if you're roboting for Jerry, but you're roboting for me a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah, it's higher bandwidth. I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, it's coverage usually.
That's intriguing though, in the same spot, and then 20 years later, and then both experiences are so fantastical. The skinless pig. Wow. I love this stuff.
All I could think about was like the stories of humans being genetic experiments of apes plus pigs, put together.
Yeah. And also, Jerry, I was wondering, like, with the any just lore in the area, if there was like the Jersey Devil in Jersey. I don't know what kind of crazy stuff they have in Wisconsin like that.
I don't know either. Probably like Dogman kind of thing, or Sasquatch.
Yeah, Dogman.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? I would say Linda Howell, I think her name is. She's
Linda Moulton Howell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. She's over by Milwaukee area. She's written about a couple.
Oh, that's right. She lives up there.
I thought she lived in New Mexico. Strange.
Or not Linda Howell. It's she's the one that wrote The Beast of Bray Road.
Linda, different Linda. Okay, sorry, not Linda Moulton. Never mind.
But yeah, she kind of documented a couple things. There was actually an experience here about 30 miles north of me, like a Batman / Mothman experience, where there were a couple of people that were driving down the highway, and this thing swooped down, started to scream at them. It kind of veered towards the windshield, veered back up, and then both of them got out and started like vomiting violently. And that was like 12 years ago, or something like that. I mean to get out there and like take photographs of the area, but yeah. So I think
I'm familiar. I think I heard that. Maybe she was on a show and I heard it from her or something. I feel like I've been familiar with that information. Okay. It's weird. I know in the UP they have I married a man from the UP, and they called it was kind of like their version of Sasquatch was the hodunk.
Yeah, the hodunk. Yeah.
Yes. It's so, like, the name just still cracks me up. It always seems so hilarious. Okay, so That's good on that. Where are you? So you were brought up kind of, standard Lutheran for the area. Were you? Was it anything that you were like severely into, or was it just kind of the casual Lutheran imagery that's in the background mostly for Wisconsin and Iowa? Were you guys serious
Yeah, I mean, it
Lutherans?
was basically, I mean, we were up until when I was in sixth grade and my brother was in third. Just kind of grew up that you didn't have to necessarily go to confession.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go to, a ritualized religious situation or to, like, God. It was always
Did at any point, oh, I'm sorry, it's hard because I never know when you're stopping because you're roboting.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out. That's what she means.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I don't know what that is though. And so I think you're finished saying
slouching.
Something.
That's probably why.
Sit up straight, James. Do we have you back?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Do you have any kind of, the only reason I ask about religion is because how it does play into our dreams and our underpinning of who we are. So that it's relevant in that sense. Are you still practicing Lutheran? Did you transform into something else? Where are you on the spiritual spectrum these days?
I would have to go with I feel like I'm a Gnostic at this point in time. Kind of been digging into that material. The neg body, some gematria. I don't know. There's something that resonates with me. So that's the Lutheran idea. I know Martin Luther was allegedly this, rebel rock star back in the day, whatnot. But at the same time, the guy thought, the devil was possessing his intestines and it was causing him constipation. So, I mean,
were you, were you a churchgoer at that point when you were a kid, or?
My mom made us go, up until sixth grade. And then she lost her father. The church kind of abandoned her off of that. So
gotcha.
We didn't have to go after that. So it's one of those, you got money.
That's the exact same thing that happened to me. I think when my mom's dad died, she stopped going, and my dad stopped going eventually. We all stopped going.
Sure. Yep.
It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It seems very American to me in a way. It's like a lot of people get it real early on, and then like parents with their kids get it like early on, then they kind of let you do your thing.
Sure.
Okay, so let's talk some dreams. So in the way you experience dreams, at current at least, or predominantly, what do they look like? And I'm looking for like all of the stuff. Like, do you experience? Are you able to read color, sound, black and white? What are they? What's the general way that all plays out for you?
Generally, it's like in a place that I'm not aware of. It'll be in an environment, may have a situation where something happens. I don't recognize the environment. Could be things falling out of the sky towards me. A common dream that I'll have is that I'm standing in somebody's driveway or on a sidewalk at night, and I'm looking at the stars, and the stars start to kind of rotate towards me. Or I might be looking up in the middle of the sky and there'll be lasers and like a sense of dread or whatnot, things that are going to happen. I would say that's 99% of the time. Just their color, but typically they're in a situation or environment that I'm not aware of. It's just kind of fabricated.
Do you encounter text, and are you able to read it?
No, that's interesting because, one of the things that I shared with you both earlier was that my wife and I, we adopted a little girl last August, and we brought her back to Wisconsin. She was adopted out of Utah, And I had this situation where like the guardian angel of her in a dream like showed up. It was just this radiant light.
Oh, wow.
And it was like brilliant. And it was like, I remember it very vividly being on the top of the staircase that goes up to the second floor of our house and thinking, my first question was, does she love us? And this thing responded, whatever this thing was she loves you. She loves your wife, and she's always going to love you. And I remember thinking, just being blown away by that. And then she was like, well, but I cannot tell you what's on the other side. Can't tell you what's on the other side of the veil. I'm like, well, you don't have to. And she was like, well, can't tell you what happens outside of, this arena of materiality or whatnot. And I don't know. And I remember there was like a passage there that she was like trying to show me. And I can't remember like what the text was. So when it gets back to like text, I have a terrible memory when it comes to.
Dude, that was your escape route she was showing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember like telling my wife right away, I was like, well, maybe she saw the bookcase because I have a lot of books that have like to do with whatnot, Manly P. Palmer, Jacques Vallée and all these guys. And I don't know, it was pretty intense. It was one of those dreams that actually she started crying when I told her that.
Can you give us, do you mind giving us the whole dream in its entirety that you recall?
Yeah, as far as the dream was, I remember I was at the top of the stair, and again, it was, 1 out of every 99 dreams actually happens in a situation that I recognize. And it was at the top of our stairs in our house. And our little girl was at the top of the stairs, and she started talking to us. And obviously, she was like a month old at the time, so that didn't make any sense. And then suddenly this brilliant light manifested out of nowheres. And I think it was blonde, or I don't recall, but it's just this brilliant light that came towards us and said, it's like, well, she loves you. And I was like, well, does she love both of us? I don't know if this is like some conscious doubt about having adopted a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that, or whatever it was, it said that loves you very much. She'll always love you. And then she kind of had this little smirk on her face, but I cannot tell you what's on the other side of the veil. I can't tell you what's going on. And I was like, and I kind of felt defensive, like, well, I'd never asked you that. I wasn't like trying to pry into it. I was just asking you if this little girl loved us. And then it kind of like manifested away, or kind of, I don't know. It was
that was the end of it?
And that was the end of it. Yeah. There was nothing else other than that.
And so on the details of her, what do you recall exactly? So you said kind of blondish and like radiant light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like beautiful. I feel like, it was like a blonde, and maybe I don't know. I probably have a predisposition towards blonde. So,
you're in Wisconsin. It's the land of blondes.
And gingers.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I'm from.
So whatever it was, I'm sure there was like a quantum,
Yeah.
Right? Like whatever I witnessed manifested it into like an observation that made sense to me. But it was a lot of light. I remember that. It was like a brilliant light. There was so much light. I felt so much love. It was like a very serene, very passive, very peaceful moment.
So this light actually had a quality that moved beyond the visual. You were actually feeling a warmth and energy from it.
Oh yes, yep, definitely, yes.
So I find that's significant too. And were you able to did she have a form? So because the image I'm getting right now is I'm trying to compile this in my head. Was there a form, or was she more light body?
It was when it came down to it, I would say it was more of a blot of light, maybe upper torso.
Mm-hmm.
Finally tried to figure out what exactly I was looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like it wasn't like a human being was like standing at the top of the stairs. It was definitely a light, It was a lot of light, and it was very peaceful. Um, I've never had that kind of dream before, and I honestly haven't had it since. I've never had what people want to believe about guardian angels in it. I've never encountered anything that might potentially be my guardian angel, but just remember
Mm-hmm.
pretty vivid experience. And
Did you happen to see that movie that was on Netflix? I think it was late last year, called The Dark Song,
I did not
or
know.
a Dark Song. It might still be on there. It's interesting. It's about the Abramelin ritual, which is one where you can contact your guardian angel.
I've not seen it.
And that's like based on actual
magic. Yeah.
Is that based on actual it is?
Yeah,
It's based on actual ritual?
I don't know if it's Enochian. I think it's Enochian magic that they're doing, or Solomonic, whatever you want to call that. But
Really?
yeah, apparently it's very true to form from what people have told me. It's a good movie. It's a really interesting movie. I mean, it's not that good movie, but it's good from a magic sense, because you get a real feel for what you would go through doing a magical ritual like that.
Make sure you link that in Discord chat.
Yeah, I will. Sorry.
So on this again, I just want to get a little more out of this dream. When she said that I can't, so even though you didn't ask this question, she was leading that. I can't tell you what's beyond the veil stuff.
Yeah.
Was there anything significant was she looking in a direction? Was there anything else than those words coming at that particular moment that would have been something symbolic or a clue?
No, it was just more of a smirk. I mean, it was kind of
like a knowing smirk.
Your little girl loves you. Yeah, little girl. And I, like I said, I didn't ask what was on the other side of the bell. All I wanted to know in this dream.
That's what I find intriguing here. Yeah.
And
well, that's what's extra intriguing here, is that she gave that information and you did not ask it. And so that seems very important to me. That's a first for us on the show. That's great.
Huh?
Okay, so, and then that also kind of addressed so color, and also through even this one dream gave us the sense of color and the sense of the warmth, tactile stuff, this almost, when you're describing that light, you were experiencing warmth and acceptance. And so you've got this other dimension of emotionality happening. That's kind of the stuff I'm looking for. Do you experience black and white dreams?
I was thinking about that. The only black and white dream I actually had was a Batman film. I remember. I'm a big Batman guy, so I remember watching a Batman film in my dreams where he was on some sort of a building, and it was black and white. And I remember him taking on somebody and just destroying this villain. And just remember, go Batman, go, or whatever you want to say. But that's. That's the only black and white dream I can recall, was having an experience with this Batman character and watching this movie. I don't know, but typically I would say most of my dreams are in color. I would say that.
So your Batman dream, what period of your life was that?
That would have been, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, maybe after.
So more contemporary. It's not way back.
No. And, I should, fair warning, when I went to the first Christopher Nolan's, is it Christopher Nolan? Christopher Nolan.
Secrets of the Sun.
Or sorry, the first Batman film with
Nolan. Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan. I did, I cried, a couple times. Growing up as being a Batman guy, you're just whatever. But
he did a really good job with it.
I liked it a lot. But,
did you know that I got a funny Batman story too? I'll tell you later. Did you know that I'm pretty sure that Nathan Crowley worked on Nolan's crew in that. I think he's a descendant of Aleister Crowley.
Alistair, sure. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I've been meaning to write about this, but that whole DC Rebirth mythos. I mean, if you read the first 5-6 pages, I mean, that's filled with Crowley. There's so much.
I've been trying to catch up on some of the new Marvel shows have been putting out, and the DC ones like Krypton. The Krypton one's just crazy. But yeah, you can just totally see all this esoteric background going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're talking about like 777s. You're talking about the tree of the Sephiroth. You're looking at the lightning flash of creation. I mean, and that's in like 5 pages. So those guys, they know what they're writing about.
Have you seen the show Legion yet?
We watched the first 2, 3 and liked it, but yeah, we just didn't keep up with it. But remember, like there being a kind of a weird alien that was.
It's not an alien. It's it's a psychic entity that attaches itself to him.
Huh. Yeah, he's supposed to be like the most powerful mutant.
Yeah.
Ever, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
It's good, and it's worth following through. The second season is phenomenal.
It's crazy.
It makes you feel like you're on acid.
Plus, it's all about consciousness, and that's what the whole show is about. And but they never mention it that way.
Yeah, there's a lot of good. I mean, I feel like if people want to like really dig into the esoteric, just pick up a comic book at this point in time. I feel like.
Yeah, they're really laying it out now.
Go read any Alan Moore comic book.
Yeah, you go back to the. Sorry.
Oh no, carry on. It's the lulls are weird with your
carry on,
phone.
And she starts talking.
I know. No, I just wanted to address that. It's like the pausing is different. I think it's your phone or something. So that's why it's kind of awkward. I don't know when you've stopped or roboted out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but I would say with like Alan Moore, if people want to get into that, I mean, like that thing back in like the early 80s. I mean, there's a scene where Swamp Thing has figured out that he's not human, he's going through hell, and it's a pretty insane series of images. I mean, it's pretty intense. And I remember reading that a couple of years ago and just thinking, I don't want to go.
Yeah, I just heard a great interview with him too from 2009.
Really?
Or 7. I'll send you a link. It was before Watchmen had come out, and he was talking about the bad experiences he had had with V for Vendetta and the Wachowskis and From Hell, the producers of that movie.
Oh, was this where he had that experience with that demon from the 72 Goetia?
No, that was way before this.
Okay.
That happened when he was a kid or younger man.
Okay.
Okay, he said it was 15 years. It was 15 years prior to that. I got the link. It was really cool. He's an interesting dude.
No, you're right. I mean, all the stuff back in that time period is like Phantom, Dr. Annam, or whatever his name is.
You totally cut out. We missed the whole first part of that.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, just key comic books back in that time period. I mean, people could check it out. You could write books and volumes of books on that kind of material.
Oh, absolutely. So I didn't mean to hijack everything. I'm sorry.
No. I've got a question. Ask the chat, since I'm not in it, if he's roboting for them, because most of the time it's just Jerry and I.
I already did. It's him. It's not us.
No, I mean they're hearing him clearly. It's just they're
hearing him cutting in and out too.
Okay, that's because it's usually the opposite.
Yeah, no biggie. It is what it is. Okay, shit happens,
So back on and moving into your dream landscape, how often, if you do you experience things that seem troublesome? So terrors and anxiety dreams, and in this envelope, other entities that don't seem friendly.
I would go with 90% of the time, I would say.
Oh, wow. Do you have any examples?
When it comes to things that are, a dream that's actually in like a realistic environment, mention the time in the bed on Indian Hill.
Yeah.
When we moved into actually prior to that, when I was single, there was a situation where um, this reptilian snake-like thing came bursting through the door, and just jumped on top of me. I remember
This
just
is
being
in the dream.
Yes. Well, I hope I
Oh,
hope it wasn't real, but yeah, it was in a dream. It was just like this intense experience where this thing like launched at me. I remember like bursting through the blackness, just launching, strangling me, and screaming at me. And I don't know if it was like a sexual experience that this thing was trying to like encounter. I don't think that was happening, but
How old were
you know,
you?
when you read all the literature, I would have been like
Okay.
28, 29 at the time.
The way you describe it
Um,
sounds like a naga. Or what, at least that's what I thought of.
what did it look like besides
I mean,
generally reptilian?
it looked like a human with a snake reptilian face. I mean, it looked like a 5'9" human being that had a serpentine figure to its face. And the thing launched at me, and I remember vividly it jumping on me and strangling me and being on top of me. And I remember screaming and screaming and screaming. I finally woke myself up. Um, so that was kind of like, so I've always thought, was that part of something that I've been experiencing since that time period? And then it kind of merged into that experience on Indian Hill. And then when my wife and I moved into our first apartment prior to us being married, same thing showed up. I remember in a dream going to the bathroom, and we had kind of a corridor that led to a stairwell that led to the first floor. And I remember this thing slinking up the stairwell um, again, and
Ooh.
I knew it was either. And I remember it just dragging me to the floor. And again, I was like screaming and yelling um, at my
And this
wife.
one was snake-like as well.
Yes. Yep. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm
And
not.
you were screaming, and your wife woke you up. Is that what you said?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
But
One of
again,
the things.
go ahead.
This is the reason why I asked what it, because sometimes I'm trying to parse out when people say reptilian these days, because there seems to be
Sure.
this there's the snake ones, or the the lizard head ones, but then there's like the alligator type and these other ones that are not. So it was definitely more in the snake realm.
Yeah, it was not alligator. No, it was definitely a reptilian snake, serpent. Yep.
Okay, and that's what I'm hearing a lot of just recently, like in other areas where I talk about dreams with people. And how long ago was that?
That would have been 2012, I guess.
And that, okay, so that one, and then the one where you were pulled down the corridor, how much later was that?
That would have been 2014. And then when my wife and I bought the house that we're currently in, it was a similar situation. It was like the first night that we had moved into the house. And I don't know if my mom stuck it in my head, but she was like, well, you know, if there's any ghosts that are going to like talk to you, blah, 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 it'll be the first night. And I remember lying up in bed, and there was like this pink, it was like a pink light that just kind of illuminated the bed a bit. And then again, there was like a hissing in my ear.
Oh.
It was so intense. And I remember thinking like, oh, this thing's trying to break me, blah, 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 but I'm not going to let it break me. And I just remember like putting my hands against my ears and waking up. And there was, of course, nothing there, but I just remember there was like this intense. And to be honest with you, I haven't had anything close to that kind of dream. And that would have been 5 years ago now when I had that one. And nothing's really come close to those kind of dreams prior.
How
This movie.
how caught up in the 2012 stuff were you?
2012, I don't know. I think I was just trying to figure out life at that point in time. I wasn't really reading much.
I mean,
Like I would say,
you didn't have expectations. I mean, you weren't like all up in the end of the world and like it's gonna happen.
no,
Yeah,
no. And, and after the fact, I hear about, certain researchers. I haven't actually read any David Icke, but
that's good.
Isaac Weisenhoff, he always talks about
Weishaupt, yeah.
Weishaupt. Yeah, he always talks about it. No, I wasn't even familiar with that back in that time period, but
David Wilcock was too. I mean, there were a bunch of people who were on that bandwagon. You know, the fourth Bach tune, it's got to end the world, blah blah blah. But yeah, but seriously, they shifted the timelines. It's 5 years off. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, nobody. I mean, no.
I know nobody knows
about this stuff. You know, it's. I don't think I was like polluted at the time. I don't think there was anything in my subconscious at the point in time that would have led me to
been triggering all that.
Yeah.
What do you? So when I just want to ask you a couple questions about this reptile thing. So before these reptile dreams happening, was the whole idea of reptilians at all? Like, how front loaded with that material were you?
Not, I remember being a kid and seeing like snakes and being afraid of them. But I mean, you're talking about.
But humanoid, yeah, and we're talking about humanoid reptilians.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, I didn't even realize it. And I mean, honestly, maybe the Strieber stuff. I mean, would that be considered reptilian? I remember reading Communion when I was younger. No,
those are more like the gray. Yeah, those are like the other kinds. Yeah, this is a very specific one, and I'm just finding it super interesting, and it's tying into stuff I'm researching behind the scenes, the snake situation. So that's very interesting to me. Were you at any point in these particular dreams, these 3 dreams that you gave us, were you lucid in them?
I was, yes, very lucid. Yep.
And on that note, on lucidity, describe your experience. Like, how do you know you're lucid in dreams?
Just being in a situation that's familiar. Like I said, most of my dreams are in a situation where I could be in a jungle or being in a desert or whatever, or very unfamiliar environment. For those dreams though that matter, I just have a tendency to know where I'm at. I recognize the bed, I recognize the room, the environment. They're very, very, very clear. So I've always. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, I just wanted to get and it had the quality of like being awake like this. Like you were that. So it was true lucidity. That it's significant with these kinds of things for me, at least. So can you describe the first time you actually went lucid, where you're dreaming, you're like, oh wow, I'm dreaming but I'm awake? That whole sorry, that was cheesy.
No. I mean, I'd go back even to the crib story. I mean, I felt like that crib story with like the little green creatures, gray creatures. I mean, I feel like that was like the first dream that I had that was being in an environment that, was reality around me. But at the same time, I was dreaming. And then for my parents to come in, turn the light on, and everything kind of disappearing. Felt like that was like the first moment.
And you were like around 5 then, right? I think that's what I have written down here, at least.
Yeah, I would. I hope I was in a crib in 5, but
I was just gonna say that.
The crib is a loose term, though. It's so
you were
I don't know why
6.
I wrote down 5.
He was younger than 6, and I think that's important because we hear a lot about how these psychic perceptions you have as a child are slowly drowned out by either A, the food, B, the programming, C, television, electromagnetic radiation, whatever. They just, by the time you're 6, they drown out, and you lose that unless you practiced or have a strong, whatever. I don't know how it works, but
makes sense.
I was thinking about, when the lights come on and they disappear, these, and what I just said, where you might have had the ability to see things in other spectrums, in other dimensions, if you will, whatever. But when the light came on, that destroyed the light frequency that you had to establish there, Maybe they can only be seen in low light or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally buy it. I really do. I feel like there's a feel like for me, the majority of the dreams for me are personally, and this is going to sound a little bit woo woo, but maybe, you know, maybe there's multiple of me's elsewhere and you kind of connect. So if it's not necessarily encountering a reptile or a snake or a serpent, but, experiencing whatever you could experience running down the street and or being in Norway. I mean, like a dream that I had recently was like me running down Norway, looking at my heritage, and remember jogging, looking at the mountains, and thinking, no, this is great. This is where my family came from. Um, and part of me is like, well, maybe maybe Dustin slash James slash Alfred from you know Multiverse 300 experienced that, and I was connected. I don't know. I mean, I've always kind of felt intuitively that maybe dreams are you connecting to a self that might be elsewhere in some other type of reality. I mean, it's always been my gut. Can't prove it, but I've always kind of thought that that was the way that dreams kind of work and out when it comes to, kind of a random, realistic, not too scary kind of dream. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. And synchronistically, it's that the approach to reality was all about this last Legion, by the way.
Yeah, I
It
gotta
was-
watch it. Sounds really interesting. I gotta get back into that.
oh man, it was good. Jared, did you see the latest one?
The one last night?
Yeah, where he's talking about all the branch. Every choice you make creates another
That
you,
was
and then
last
that
week.
one lives. Oh,
Yeah.
that was last week. Okay, yeah.
They took 3 parallel lifetimes, basically. What the argument, the premise of the show is that every decision you make branches the timeline. So every
Sure.
time you change, it's that old theory. So there's billions of timelines, and they examine 3 choices which lead to, or one choice. I forgot exactly how it worked, but they showed 3 branches where they led. One was a billionaire, one was a crackhead. I forget what the other one was. Wage slave.
Mhm.
Basically,
Yeah.
it was a spectrum of the public. It was interesting.
But it's all, and it's tied into what we're talking about here, and it's tied in
It
because
is.
it's all very dreamlike also.
It's a thought
So-
experiment on top of that. Plus, it's
Mhm.
an analog for parallel lives, past lives, whatever you want to call them. Since there's no time, there's no past. So there can't be past lives. Everything's happening right now. You just can't see it. So, and then in that, it was an analog of that, but shown linearly. It was interesting.
Yeah, and it just is what James was saying kind of made me hone in on that. What about oh man, I got sidetracked on that. So easy for me these days to get sidetracked. But what do you think about downloads of information through dreaming? Has this happened to you where you actually learn something in a dream and then maybe you're trying to learn it in real life, so your mind's honed in on I need to learn something, but you actually learn it through the dream realm experience first and then bring it into this experience?
I haven't had like a Philip K. Dick experience. I've never felt as if something's been downloaded.
Mhm.
But what I've noticed is if I'm like really into something, for instance, remember like getting into Pizzagate back at the last, was it 2 Novembers ago or something like that? No, but really getting into it. And when I remember like reading those WikiLeaks emails, you see all this like language, it made no sense, whatever. They can write it off. They can like say whatever it needs to be. But I mean, you can't play dominoes on pizza or on lasagna or pasta, right? I mean, there was obviously a code being used there.
Yeah,
And I remember
definitely.
being so into it. And I remember one night just being up in the bedroom and remember like Clinton's, Podesta, all these caricatures of all these people that I had been researching, like on the bed, like looking at me, screaming at me. And at the time, I think I had like a flu or a fever or whatnot. And then, part of you was like, well, okay, well, maybe I published a couple things on my website, blah, blah, blah. And it like got picked up by the collective unconscious. And
Mhm.
people like figured it out and they're going to like send a little threat to me to like stay away, blah, blah, blah. Those are the things that you kind of want to be like, oh, whatever I'm doing, it matters. The work that I'm doing actually is something of material to people and to the masses and blah, blah, blah. but never a direct download. Usually it's like more periphery where I'll really get involved with the topic, and things that are surrounding that topic kind of appear at night around my bed and yell and scream at me and whatnot. So
the naggers.
yeah.
Sometimes too, you can, this happens to me where I'll have a problem in my job. I'm a programmer, so when I have a programming issue I need to overcome, I could sleep on it, and the next day I will have an answer. Usually they're like, oh, it's obvious how to do it now, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hard to recognize sometimes that it's that's where it came from, but it's there if you look.
So what, you're saying Pizzagate was real? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, no. I don't know if it was.
Kidding.
I got sucked into that rabbit hole too. I wrote some code. I wrote an application that took the emails, all the emails from the dump, and put them into an Elasticsearch elk stack, which is a data visualization tool. And like, I put this out there. I'm like, look, this is my effort to help, but I don't want to get involved because I wasn't sure. But you're right. Those pictures on Instagram, they were creepy as fuck. And
obviously fucked up.
It was all set up perfectly to trigger you emotionally and pull you in. Whether or not that was done by humans on purpose, I don't know.
Yep.
But that's the way it lined up. Kind of like the Vegas thing, right? I don't think there was a big plan to shoot all those people in Vegas. I think it just kind of bubbled up that way and left all these weird esoteric markers all around, like an obelisk and a sphinx and a pyramid.
Yep.
That's bizarre.
Yep. No, I agree. And the thing that not to like segue away from dreams here, but I mean the thing with the Pizzagate thing is, it's a mockery. People make fun of it. You're kind of the tinfoil hat guy, but people really need to go back and look at those emails. There's never been anything when it comes down to what those people were talking about at the time. Again, it's it's scary that something like that can just get moved on and whatever.
Right, which was
they were so strange.
That was also one aspect of what was going on too, was to make it discreditable in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote about this in my blog last 2 years ago, probably, about that Kubrick video that came out, the deathbed confession.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, the purpose of this is so the future people, should any real information come out about Kubrick, it can be quickly denied as conspiracy, or, oh, you're just remembering that it's a fake video, it's a hoax. It's always going to be a hoax now, always, forever, because that video was in the public eye. And I think kind of the same thing for Pizzagate. It's always going to be a hoax because it got discredited immediately like that. So and I believe that was one aspect of why it occurred.
Yeah, I don't know. That was I kind of burned a lot of intellectual load on that one. I don't know.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
So do you get in so I'm winding us back around. With dreams, have you had any experience with, do you have dreams where they've played out later? And usually this is mundane stuff, but where you dreamt it and then it happened. And also, what's your experience with deja vu? So I feel they tie together.
I don't have any dreams that I've ever felt became prophetic. Deja vu, I would say that happens 2-3 times a week for me. Not sure what it happens, but most of my dreams, I would say, if I win the lottery, I'll probably win the lottery in my dreams once or twice a month. Never happens, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you play?
Never.
But does it have to be the actual? That's a great point. Maybe you should, if you're having those dreams. And also, if we're looking at symbols, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be like the literal lottery. Like, were you lucky at that week or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I guess I haven't. Yeah, I think all of us want to be independently wealthy and not have to.
No, that would suck.
It would suck a lot.
The burden of
That'd
it.
be fucking amazing. I would start my own YouTube.
Yeah. But yeah,
I'd buy an island.
Deja vu, though, I mean, that's pretty common for me, where I'm not, I hate to go to like a movie like The Matrix, you know, where that hits in. I mean, I feel like it's more
Black
of a
Cat. Yeah.
Carl Jung type of a situation where, yeah, you know, I feel like it's maybe more connected to the collective unconsciousness, or again, you know, maybe it's tied to, you know, James from Universe 575, and I don't know. To me, I feel like it's all.
With your deja vus, have you tied any of them? So when you're trying to figure out what's this experience? Why have I, you know, what's going on here? Have you tied any of them to past dreams, or has it been more anomalous?
More anomalous, yes. Would just be more, you know, walking the dog in the morning, for instance, and seeing another cat, and then thinking like, yeah, this, I feel like I've seen this situation before.
Mm-hmm.
More like that, and never ever anything grandiose. It's more just day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I find they're always mundane stuff, but you know, it's interesting for some people to have myself and like Aaron, one of our friends, Aaron, has been able to almost tie all of them back to dreams that we've had. Like almost without fail, all of mine, all the late. So I want to actually ask this right now. So this last month, I've been having deja vus on an intense amount. Like there was 2 days ago, almost the whole day was a deja vu. I had small breaks from it, but it was a continual whoa. And it was from different pieces of dreams from different periods in my life. And because I always remember that dream, you know, the deja vu happens. I'm like, oh, I remember that dream. And so I had this experience like 2 days ago. Of course, then my mind wanders. I'm like, am I dying soon? What's going on? Am I dead? You know, like
No, the timelines are collapsing. That's all.
Yeah, these existential questions. So, you know, like, what's your experience of them when they're actually happening?
I mean, I never. I guess I can't say I get like a sense of dread. I would. It's a good question. I mean, I feel like, again, I mean, I'm probably simplifying this, and I'm a simple mind, but I always feel like if I encounter something in a deja vu experience, I feel like it's another one of me
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else in, you know, a multiverse situation, or.
Are you having more than usual lately? Or are they normal? Like, I mean, you said you have a lot anyway, so.
I mean, they like petered off. I feel like they're kind of going cycles. If actually, when I did this, when I did, I probably didn't read this, but I did a breakdown of the Apocalypse of James from the Nag Hammadi. There were a couple of researchers in Oxford that found an actual Greek translation rather than a Coptic translation. And I put a summary of that, and then I experienced a situation with my walking the dog in the morning. It's like saying, well, this is, you're walking in the middle of a fall morning in Wisconsin, and like the wind's blowing, and there's like street lights, and you know, these are you trying to get through the archons. And when I published that, I got a little bit of feedback, and I remember lots of synchronicities after that. I remember there being like a lot of deja vu situations, and you know, but then it petered off like everything else, whether I was, you know, kind of lost interest and wasn't paying attention. But that was pretty intense after I put that summary together on my website.
Yeah.
Don't know what that means.
Significant.
We hear that a
No
lot
idea.
from people who start doing research in a subject, and then a bunch of synchronicities start happening around that. And I consider deja vu a type of synchronicity. In a way, it is. You know, they reoccur. So it could be that. It could be, and I think, like, especially when I talked to Walter Bosley. Walter Bosley was talking about, I forgot which book he was working on. I think it was one of the Empire of the Wheels. When he started to look into it, the information that he was looking for sort of made itself available, I'll say. And maybe in a way that's, and what I was going to say was he took that as a a sign that he was going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
And I know people who...
Yeah, he's probably spot on. I mean...
Yeah. I was going to say, I just know people... I know a person, actually, who... who looks at synchronicity as a bad omen and avoids them.
Right. I think, wasn't he saying... He's saying a lot of people do, actually.
I don't know. I only know one person that does. But I haven't really asked many.
What's the... James, what is... So in the last, let's say, 6 months... Has there been any general running theme in your dreams overall?
Yeah, I would say like death.
As far as feeling, vibe. Oh.
Death,
okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you tell us a little bit?
You know, for whatever reason, being on top of a bridge and falling or falling off a cliff. Yeah, I don't mean to be prophetic. I don't want to put this out there in the grand scheme of things, of course, but yeah, a lot of death dreams, I would say. And
so overall or recently?
In the last 6 months.
Cool.
6 months, I would say.
Any giant solar flares or extinction events in your dreams?
No, just me. No, I wish I could say it was going down with everybody else. I mean, actually, one of the better ones I had was I was in a park with my wife, and some blast went off, and I remember like pulling her behind a tree, and kissing her, goodbye, knowing that the end was going to happen. So I don't know. Maybe there's. I'm definitely not prophetic, so anybody listening, definitely don't listen to what I have to say.
I was just going to say that you're not prophetic dreamer, so you got nothing to worry about. This means you got to live a long life, right?
Yeah, but I'm hearing a lot of death dreams. Death and snakes coming up a lot.
And energy waves.
I hope not.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is stuff we're trying to see if there's a collective flow going with people. And so, like recently, when I'm asking questions about people having these death dreams, including me, and a lot of them are saying just what you're saying. It wasn't like it wasn't like the world, it was me. And so a lot of people are saying that. Which I find infinitely interesting. And okay, so on this, have you experienced like that whole dream within a dream experience that some people speak of? Do you have an example?
I did. I had one a couple days ago. I remember. It's hard to remember. I felt like it had something to do with I don't know, our dog, and the dog was like escaped from me. One of the big dreams I have is like you just got to rescue, and she's always like tugging at the leash, and she escaped, and having the sense of dread that she was going to die, and waking up and she was still there, but I was still in the dream. But I've had them, but I'm sorry, I can't recall anything more personal when it comes to that. But definitely,
that's it. You're out of here.
I would say.
But that it's not common. We don't hear a lot of people speaking about dreams within dreams. So, and I've been trying to at least put a little more focus on that to see if it is less common than, because it wasn't just generally coming up in our conversations. So
yeah, I mean, I would say it's picked up. I mean, for me personally, I can't remember it. I probably drink too much, but but I would say over the last 2 months, I probably had 2 or 3 of those kind of dreams where it's a dream within a dream. And I always think back to that film, was it Inception or something like that? But
oh yeah, yes.
I don't want to think that that's subconsciously influencing me on those situations, but I mean, the real one that I really can recall was just like losing the dog and then finding her and then losing her again. Yeah, nothing too deep.
Are you do you know your basic astrological information?
What I think I was born, well, I think I'm a Virgo. September 8th was my birth date, so is that Virgo?
Okay, so you just know your sun. You're a sun sign guy, yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know much about that.
Yeah, yeah, I gathered that right away when you didn't actually know, and you knew. Of course, you know the day of your birth. What about things like? Before I get a little more into the esoteric side of things, what about? Have you been one to have sexual dreams, like wet dreams, and that kind of content?
No, I maybe when I was in like sixth, seventh grade, I had a little bit, but no, I always kind of felt a little bit out that way because of friends saying that they had,
Yes.
you know. Um,
Well, they are wonderful. I'll tell you that. Okay, so the whole idea on so what do you actually think the function of dreams is? And we like the woo woo. So beyond the we understand the psychological idea of unwrapping your day, unpacking your day,
mhm,
in your the obvious worries that play out and all that chatter.
mhm.
Beyond that stuff, what do you think is going on? You did give us hints with this multiverse stuff earlier.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, personally, again, it's woo. I don't have anything to like validate for this, but my gut tells me that it's very Jungian. It's very collective unconscious. It's the idea that we're all connected. There's something that kind of bleeds between me, you, Jerry, and the 10 of us in 10 different universes. Um, I feel like, I mean, again, it's just woo woo, but that's my personal take on it. Can't prove it. I don't have any data to support it. I couldn't like write a hypothesis about this and prove it. Couldn't write a thesis about it. But I mean, that's just my gut instinct is that it's all related to the Carl Jung collective unconsciousness and everything being connected and everything for us after us all being kind of connected. So just my take. And I don't know anything, so don't quote me on it.
Oh, we call that the cloud.
Yep.
I muted Nish, doesn't know it. You're unmuted.
What do you think about have you experienced loved ones or people close to you that have passed within the context of dreams?
I have not. I haven't actually. I've been pretty lucky that way. I haven't lost a lot of loved ones. I lost my grandparents long before I was born, so still fortunate to have my parents around and my wife's parents around and my siblings. So no, I haven't had that experience, but at the same time, I've been pretty lucky, and I haven't had that unfortunate experience yet.
Yes, yeah. What about like animals that you've been close to?
Oh yes, all the time. If a dog were to pass, I always dream about seeing the dog or going up and hugging it and like runs away. Um, Pretty big dog people in this family, so yeah, lots of dreams.
Yeah, I love dogs too. So, okay, and can you give us a little bit about dreaming with the animals?
Um, yeah, I mean, it would be, for instance, we lost a little terrier when I was in college. My parents lost it, and I remember coming home for that. And my dad never hugs us. My dad's this cold war era, uh, just that nuclear family kind of guy that doesn't show a lot of emotions. But he came up and he was like crying and he hugged me. Um, so that that could have influenced it. But I remember when we lost that little terrier, I just fell asleep that night and I was crying. And I remember like running up to a hill on all things at Indian Hill, where I had had a couple of other dreams that we had discussed about earlier, and just hugging him and him just like trotting away, and that was it. I don't know. It was that little probably being a little bit emotional here, but that little dog was like very important in our family. Just remember it being a pretty striking dream to like go up to him and giving him last one hug because when I picked him up, he had already died and I had to take him back home. I don't know. It was just people probably think I'm silly, like crying about a dog right now, but whatever. It was,
Oh, I don't.
no, I
Not
mean,
at all.
there are the more important things in life, and I realized that. But he was like a little family member, and yeah, that would be one experience. I just remember like running up to a hill, him trotting up to me and wagging his tail and hugging him, and him running away, and that was it.
So do you think he was saying goodbye?
I hope so. My father is one of these people that would say that these things can't get to heaven. I don't necessarily believe in a heaven. I don't even
Hmm.
necessarily believe in that there's a God or well, whatever else. But it was to see him crying and saying at the same time that we'll never see him again. That
Hmm.
could have impacted my subconscious and related to a dream. Yeah, probably a little bit too much information, but yeah.
Oh, it's
Uh,
not. It's not too much information. It's I of course
That's not a
I'm
thing on
in.
the show.
Yeah, we don't subscribe to that at all. I believe the animals are just as valid as we are. We are animals too, and yeah, and that's been a focus. I've been asking more about animals and dreams because I think some people are actually more bonded to their animal family than they are actually their human family because of the pure love that is actually always there. They just accept us and they add so much. um that was heartwarming. Thank you. That makes me, I'm dealing with an
what's
elderly
that?
dog right now that
Oh,
is my life. I love her so much, and she's I can't even imagine. Oh Lord. Okay, so what are, and then so in this vein we
mhm.
are in now, what are your thoughts and ideas on and about death, the process of dying, and also the state of death once one is dead?
Oh, wow, that's a question. Um, I mean, wow. I mean, my current research, you guys probably haven't looked into any of it, but I keep finding pi, the idea of pi in the Old Testament, in the word like abracadabra. You see it everywhere. And one of my hypotheses of late has been that, the idea of the circle, pi, the divine, that symbol of the circle is basically just another trick, you know, of the demiurge, whatever you want to call it, right? So the idea that you go back to the idea of the Gnostics, the idea that the Plamora aborted something, and the demiurge created everything, blah 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 blah. But in order for the demiurge and his archons to continue existence, their creation, blah blah blah, they need to keep that divine spark. They need to keep reincorporating it back into a material realm, right? So when we die, our soul, for instance, is reincarnated because if it gets reunited with Mara, divine, the demiurge and its creation ceases to exist. So I would say that, long story short, that's where I would say that I'm at right now. I'm not saying that that's legitimate. I'm not saying anything, but like my gut tells me that there's something that those Gnostics from the Greeks, pre-Christian, equivalent Christian, feel like they were onto something, and then the church has like buried that intentionally over the last 2,000 years. So I don't know. I'm not overly hopeful. I would hope that if I were to pass, I could figure out how to get back and not have to get brought back. But I don't know. That's a deep question. That's kind of where I'm at, and I probably just gave you guys way too much information as to where I'm currently at. But
No,
that's my
not at all. Not at all. Is your current research into Gnosticism or the Nagamati stuff, or what?
Yeah, it would be the Gnostic stuff. I mean, even to some extent, if you go back to the Hattie Bow stuff, I mean, Hattie Bow was basically an L. Ron Hubbard type, right? I mean, you talk
Maybe.
about L. Ron Hubbard, you talk about Crowley, you talk about Parsons. I mean, all those guys were Gnostics. People call them Luciferians, call them Satan worshippers. They're not. I mean, they were just Gnostics prior to.
Actually, if you follow the work of like Michael Joseph, and if you listen to the latest THC with that guy Juan, I think his name is,
Mhm.
about the Susquehanna River, uh, there's another religion. It's not Gnosticism. There's something else that they're worshiping and doing. It's not, and like the Masons would call Gnosticism profane. It's a religion for the masses. It's not the true religion. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's
Sure.
their, that's the outlook of whatever. If we know about it, that's not what they're practicing.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, whatever we know is not what is actually happening, and I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And so even like the Nag Hammadi, I mean, you talk to people in our area of research, they'll say that, yeah, there was like something that they spun out of Israel and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know.
It's
Hard to say.
impossible for
I mean,
us to know. I mean, it's just another Bible, as far as I'm concerned. It's old paper. We don't know who wrote it or where it came from or how old it is. Didn't they lose half of it when they recovered it? I don't,
right.
it's shady. But the Gnostics are definitely been around, and the Dead Sea Scrolls also surrounded in controversy, but they uncovered some of the Gnostic stuff. You reminded me, talking about pi, that last summer. I'm going to show you something. If I can find screen share. Here it is. Check this out. You see this image here?
Yes.
Okay, this is the Hebrew. I gotta show people in chat. Hebrew. Sorry, give me a second, guys. So I'm showing everyone on the stream. This these letters are Hebrew letters for the name of God.
Mm-hmm.
And last summer, a group calling themselves Tengri 137 came out and said, no, that's not the name of God. That's an equation. It's pi times 7 times pi to the 7th.
Mm.
And
Pi times 7 times pi to the 7th. Huh.
Totally fascinating.
And they put out these encrypted, weird-looking, looks like dwarven letters from Tolkien, for real, about where they came from and how they did all this stuff. And they gave all these magic squares out with a bunch. Interesting thing to dig into. It's just a puzzle. Don't get caught up in it. But
well, 137, that was wasn't it a young the physicist number? Like I feel like that was a number I saw. 137 was like some weird.
It's a significant number. I think it's a prime. I think it's also
33rd prime, maybe something like that.
Something like that. And it's in the Fibonacci sequence, I think, too. But I don't know. I'm not up on my numerology. I know it's associated with Masons. I just know that.
But yeah, pi is everywhere. I mean, Old Testament, you talk about like the Elohistic versus the Jehovah creation stories. Elohim is completely pi. You look at abracadabra, it's all pi.
Right. Well, this group of people implied that they were the Elohim.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And that would be implying, yes, that would be the idea of pi encoded in like the Old Testament.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So what does it mean? I mean, do you think it ties into something esoteric, or it's just a truth that's woven into the Bible? Is it the background pattern of the matrix that we're seeing? The blueprints,
I'm being pessimistic. So I'm being kind of cynical. And I would say that, the idea of pi, the circle, again, is like the divine. It's the infinite. But again, it's a trick of the demiurge, right? They're recycled back into this plane of existence. I don't know if it's true, but it's a little hypothesis that I have going.
It's a trick in the way that it never ends.
Right. But at the same time, it has like a divine quality to it, right?
Yeah. It also has. I'm just thinking in my head. Which I'm talking something that I'm babbling now. It reminded the whole thing about pi and how it came about. And for those who don't know, I'm pretty sure this was it. I forgot who it was. One of the Greeks had a square, and he kept like drawing little squares in the area outside of the circle. Like, so if you put a circle within a square, there's a space. There's spaces on the corners. If it was Euclid or Pythagoras, I don't remember which one, but he was drawing little squares. Maybe I'm thinking of a different story. I thought the ratio came about because he was trying to figure out how much space was left on the outside within the square, and he could figure out the ratio. I might be thinking of something else, so never mind. I take all that back.
Yeah.
Jerry.
I mean,
As I'm describing it, I'm reminded of that's also the way that the atom was thought of first. That there must be some smaller thing, but I'm pretty sure there was something to do with figuring out how much space was left within the square in which the circle was inscribed, with dividing that area again and again and again as far as they could. And that's like him with the ratio.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, they kind of frown upon Marty Leeds, but I think he does a pretty good job when it comes to.
I love Marty Leeds, and I wish he wasn't so busy so he could come on the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant idea. Like the idea that arithmetic is number, but number and space is geometry, and I think he does a pretty good job about.
Sure. You've seen that movie? Was it Pi? I think it's Pi. Isn't it the movie Pi?
Sure.
It's the black and white one. You've seen it?
Yep. Yep. Ray drills his head out at the end there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And he meets the rabbi, and the rabbi goes over the gematria of father and mother and the child. I mean, that's a perfect example of how numbers represent reality in a way, in words. What you just said. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, sorry, Nish. That's where I think death is. Apologies there, but a little rant there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I feel like nobody knows, and there's a reason for that, and I don't know what that ultimately means, but it is probably.
Well, all that was good. That I was vibing on everything that was happening there. I was kind of going with Jerry on that for a minute too.
Where did we go?
What you didn't take us fully there. What do you think this reality is about that we're having, this experience? And this ties into the numbers. So if you could just go further into what you were just saying, actually.
Oh, I'm honestly just at the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's this idea of pi. I just picked up like this book, even it was basically the gematria of Bala, and even had to put it on the secret credit card so that wife.
I love a secret credit card.
It's helped me out many times.
What's a secret? I don't get that. What do you mean?
Well, it's a card that I can make purchases that the wife doesn't know when I'm actually making a purchase.
Right, you're not accountable.
A bat phone credit card. I got
you. But I mean, just like a cursory glance at it, you're talking about light waves being encoded like the Old Testament and the New Testament. The idea of the cube being a hidden or a separate God. I don't know. I mean, I really just like hit the tip of the iceberg on this, and I get plenty of time at work to like dig into it and
Great job, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the cube is a representation of the holodeck we're in.
Yeah.
That would be funny if it was.
So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to answer it, but I feel like maybe a year out from here, I maybe have a little bit more concrete evidence to like point to like numbers in the New Testament and whatnot. But the most striking thing for me was just reading that book and the idea that the Greeks implied Greek mysticism, early Christian mysticism, through the idea of number. And everything encoded in the original Greek New Testament was based on number. And how do you even like begin to categorize that or codify that? But
what if the original teachings, writings, history, whatever, was a numerical code that when translated into language and then retranslated, it lost its magic, its purpose? Got lost completely in history. I mean, we could be looking at something like that. And I know Crow talked about the it was Sumerians. They had a base 60 number system, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about, that everyday people can manage a base 60 number scheme in their heads. I mean, I can barely calculate hexadecimal.
I can't even figure out what like the first 5 digits of pi are. But I wrote like 5 articles on it, so I don't.
I can't wait to read them. Nish, are you gone? Did she disappear?
No, I wanted to know, like, so in this where we're talking about nature of reality, where do you stand on this other? So we've gotten a little bit from your dreams, but where do you stand on the nature of other beings? So, and I guess that could play into what visor you're looking through: reptilians, aliens, fairies, whatever, other beings outside of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned this before in another interview. I mean, I'm kind of a John Keel, Jacques Vallée type in terms of, whatever it is that you, Nish or Jerry, are like witnessing. It's basically based whatever the outcome of that observation is, it's based on whatever social experiences we have. So, UFO that Kenneth Arnold saw back, 60 some years ago, 200 years ago would have been witnessed as like an angel. Um, what that is ultimately though,
Yes.
I I mean, again, this is just my gut instinct, but I would say it's just a crease in the fabric of the simulation that we live in, whatever it is.
See, she makes that too. She makes it too black and white, or too broad a question. Make it more black and white. Like, what's your gut tell you? Is it an internal thing? Is it something we're consciously generating, or is it an external force?
I mean,
this is why I have you, Jerry.
I mean, that's the broadness I'm more interested.
I mean,
and these are just opinions. We're not looking.
I feel like everything's,
dude.
And I don't pretend to have the answers at all. But I mean, one of the hypotheses that I've presented of late is the idea that, again, it's very Gnostic based, but when the demiurge, whatever you want to call that, was aborted from the pleroma, it generated the abyss, and at that point in time, that idea of like the Jungian collective unconsciousness was generated at the same time. Everything is connected, just based off of that separation, off of that divorce. Um, so things like the UFOs, angels, devils, whatever you want to call it, like a mystical experience, they're basically
the trickster element.
Yeah, they're things that manifest, and the three of us could be standing in a movie theater, and one of us might see something, or all three of us see something, and the three of us see three different things, right? I mean, stuff of what our social conditioning is, and
right, because we're pulling up imagery that's represented by the energy we're perceiving, and all of us might have different imagery for that thing.
Yeah, there's a very good old Wentz, I think his name is. He's got a pretty good book about tracking down fairies in early 20th century England. Vallée quoted it multiple times in all of his work, but you read those stories, I mean, it sounds like a UFO from 50s, 60s, same kind of encounter, bright lights coming down, and they quantified it at that time. It's like a fairy encounter, or running into a fey line or a ley line or something of that sort. So
ley line, fey line, it's interesting how they rhyme.
Yeah.
There's 3 lines of a rhyme. Well, before we came live, I wanted to talk about, of course, you're famous for this, with the spiders. And it feels like a good segue into that.
Well, I hope I'm not famous, because I've been called a shill and, government agent, disinfo, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, the idea there was...
you got to own that shit, James.
That's right. That's patina.
That's right. Okay, I'm CIA. Fuck you. Here's my information. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Yeah. But the general from the Haribo mythos, if you want to call that, is you got a Soviet scientist. He was, well educated, very highly intelligent, had all these credentials. Was running a mining rig in mid '80s Soviet Union. This mining rig figured out something below the Earth, blah blah blah, and discovered like the idea of like an archonic simulation, a matrix simulation. Um, the idea that the sun is an original, the original sun doesn't exist any longer. You have like this new sun that has a different time. You have this idea of like octaves, uh, like sort of like a wave that's emanating from the sun being manifesting into different matters of matter based off of this idea that you have like highly organized plasma. I mean, the whole thing's very convoluted. In retrospect, it was fun to like dig through. Um, but at the end of the day, I've sent out multiple requests to like actually validate this guy. Nobody's ever come forward and said, yeah, this guy existed. His history existed. And then you get into this idea of like Levenshov, who's kind of an L. Ron Hubbard type from Russia that moved to California, kind of a polygamist, had all this stuff going on and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I mean, it was, for me personally, it was fun to like dig into it. I've always like put a disclaimer to it. The idea that spiders are kind of our overseers. They destroyed humanity. Like, it's all very romantic. The idea that humanity again was like very pure until this intergalactic species came on into the solar system and decided to like take over things in order to more or less become the perfect being. I mean, it was fun. Again, Jerry and I, we
Yeah.
talked about this years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's obviously there's no validity to it, but
Right, but there's some
is
correlation
that important?
points. Sorry.
I'm just saying, the point is that it's not provable. Is not really.
It depends on why it was introduced into the ether.
Yes, thank you, Jerry. That's what I'm getting at.
I would say that's why. I mean, that matters whether or not it's been uncovered. It was there, but nobody could translate it or whatever. More people have an awareness of it. Does that pull that timeline into being? It's kind of, is that where you're going with that?
Mm-hmm.
Nish?
Yeah, Jerry, you totally tied that in.
Sorry, James?
Well, even like the black goo guy came after that.
The black
you
goo
recall
guy?
that black goo and the spiders?
Yes, yeah, right.
Or the black goo?
Black goo, yeah. The whole thing with the shirts. And then that was around the time that, what I noticed about it, there were all these things that were happening and coming out, regardless of their veracity, that were kind of tied to that, like the human cloning in underground bases, which kind of went along with the shirts, and they went on for sale, for $1 billion, and who's got $1 billion, and who's still alive, and all, just, you get down that rabbit hole. It's crazy. But I think more interestingly, in regards to the octaves and the frequencies being transmitted by the sun, which the moon, I think, either relayed or monkeyed with in some way to make them bad or harmful or controlling, and rebroadcast them to the earth. That got Crow's attention because he had filmed the wave in the lunar wave in 2012, which kind of goes along with the whole thing. And now, recently, I've heard people talking about the moon's light, or something's going to change with the moon. Like, people are having visions of something changing with the moon. And this is what this one person said definitely, was that whatever it's doing, it's going to stop doing it, and what it has been doing has been controlling us, or holding the veils up between all the realities that are here.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Which also, again, ties into the Hattie Bob stuff, so that's why I find it really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he just, whoever put that together, very smart, very well read. But I mean, you read about the moon with like Isis and Cyrus. I mean, these are very old concepts, like a fake light, a fake mother.
The false light matrix, and that's the kind of stuff. That's
so,
reptilian lore, I think.
Yeah, just very deep myth, And at the end of the day, do I think that there were like spiders that came from 50,000 light years away and decided to take over our solar system? I don't think that. Unfortunately, people haven't like bought into it, and to the extent that maybe other researchers, their ideas have been kind of run with. But it was interesting, and I thought it was a puzzle, and I'm more than happy to. But I always put a disclaimer on it. I always said that it's science fiction, could be, myth, it could be comic book from the Soviet Union. I have no idea. So, anyways, those are my 2 cents on it.
It'd make a good goddamn comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Within this material, where there, because I'm actually not, as I told you, I'm not familiar with it. Outside of this stuff, I cited behind the scenes with us that makes Jerry laugh. But anyway, was there a description, Jerry? We're not saying this live, but was there a description? Is there a description of what they look like? I mean, do they literally look like spiders, or were they humanoid?
No, they were spiders.
Yeah, they were spiders. They were like 40 meters high, very large.
Holy shit. Pardon my French. I find that terrifying, personally.
Triggered.
It is. There's something, and my house is filled with, I like spiders. I have no problem with spiders, but the idea of large spiders has always been like larger than me, or even dog-sized spiders. There's something in my makeup that triggers that fight or flight sort of thing. So there's something about this narrative that is fantastic, and I can certainly understand why people have glommed onto it and made it perhaps more than it is, but perhaps there is something to it also.
I mean, it's a romantic myth again. There's this idea that humanity was meant to be the perfect species. We were like seeded from like some other galaxy 50 million years ago, or whatever you want to call it, 50,000 years ago. And then these people, or this group of species that are the spider, the Ebrov, they saw that they were weak and they destroyed us. And, now we're kind of a immoral, morally poor species, whereas our ancestors were like perfect. I mean, it's the same thing that you read about, the fall and before the deluge and everything. I mean, it's just kind of a different take on the idea that humanity was meant to be perfect, was created to be perfect, but we've fallen at some point in time. And
well, there are native myths with spiders where it's like the grandmother, right? The weaver, and all that, where it's a goddess, and they've been deified in a way, it's also, so it's the weaver, but it's also like got a lot of crone imagery around it. So the one that cuts the cord also, that's not afraid of cutting you down at the same time, yet she also weaves and creates the fabric of space and time. And this narrative's out there anyway in myth.
Not to mention, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, I mean, this guy, again, I feel like he was an L. Ron Hubbard type, very smart, very, you read about his taking advantage of Parsons and Parsons' wife at the time out in California, Pasadena and whatnot. I just feel like he was a very, very well read, very well, not saying that what he's was basically rewriting was wrong, but I feel like end of the day, this guy was basically trying to make a profit off of it. Again, base material. I mean, if you read about Jack Parsons, if you read about some of L. Ron Hubbard stuff, I mean, you get into the ancient alien ideas and talk about gold. There could be something there that he saw back in those days of like the Babylon rituals. I don't know, but it's an intrigue.
Oh yeah, there's a lot there, a lot of juicy stuff,
and we don't know anything about it. That's the worst part.
Yeah, so again, it could be complete false. It could be 50-50. It could be 80-20. I don't know, but nonetheless, it was interesting. And if people want to read about it, they can visit my site and go down the Hannibal rabbit hole.
What do you?
Wait.
Carry on, Jerry.
One more thing about the spiders was the Bohemian Grove statue, which warns off spiders. Spiders do not tread. I forgot what the saying is, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the owls versus the
owls versus spiders, right? The age-old secret society battle. Right, correct.
I was always in the owl camp. Still am. So, James, what do you think? In the far woo woo, in the high or low woo woo, what do you think about? This is gonna make Jerry laugh, but what are your thoughts on space and the celestial bodies? So we've talked about the moon a little bit, but like in general, all of it, or in specific.
Well, I haven't been to space personally, so I can't vouch for it. But I don't know. I mean, great question. I mean, is it, are these lights on like the firmament, or is this
Yeah, is space real, basically?
is this the idea of archons, or these different celestial bodies? And I don't know. Growing up as a NASA kid, I was just expected everything to be what you were taught. Now, you run into people like Crow and Jerry, and suddenly everything's kind of turned 180. And I don't know. It's a good question. I can get up to outer space and be Superman or Green Lantern or whatever. I don't know. But my first sense is that I don't know, something archonic. I would say maybe these things are responsible for the manifestation of matter. I can't really put my finger on it, but again, just hypothesizing right now.
I admire how pragmatic you are with, because we all, no one knows except for those that have been up there allegedly, and so it's just fun fodder to chew on, and it's nice to get
fresh meat.
People's opinions is what might be possible, at least through our imaginative function.
Right. Plus, it's always good to hear other people's opinions. It always expands your own viewpoint, unless it's crazy. But seriously, no. I mean,
talk about, so yeah.
I don't know what space is anymore. I used to be an NASA kid just like you, and I wanted to go to space camp and all that shit. And now I don't know. So I've really just come to agree that I don't know, and it's probably both things. It's probably real and not real. It's Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a very interesting idea, that the fact that if three of us step outside of orbit, some sort of orbit atmosphere, that we cease to exist. I mean, that it's it's crazy. It's a crazy thought.
I never thought about that. I was thinking more we couldn't get outside of the container. But yeah, that's also an interesting thought. Is the void outside? Is space the abyss?
Yeah, like we're basically, we only exist in this space, and we cease to exist if we go outside of the boundaries or the parameters of I don't know. It's all things to think about and dream about, I guess, right?
Exactly. I had a question. I have one more question. That's all I'm on my whole list here. So we've gone through everything. Two more questions. So you were talking about, it was back during the Deja Vu talk we were talking about. You said if this happened in universe such and such, which made me think, have you ever seen the TV show Rick and Morty?
No, I always hear it brought up by Crow and Jason. I have not kept up with it, but I know they're very prophetic, right? They're always...
No, I don't think so. I disagree with what they say about Rick and Morty, but I think it's a really good show. And some of the concepts they introduce, yes, it's violent, yes, it's sick, I give you that. But the whole dimension hopping thing, the fact that the dimension that we are in the Rick and Morty home universe is called C-137, which is the cesium atom that we use to tell time in the atomic clock. Cesium-137. I don't know if they did that intentionally, but it's a dimension hopping. It's like Sliders on steroids with ray guns and drugs.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and 137 again, right?
Yeah, another 137. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, there's a lot of 137s out there.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you both think? I mean, do these people out of Hollywood, do they actually know what reality is, or do you think they're just...
No, I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I think there may be some who put things in their movies, like a David Lynch type. But I think on a whole, the ideas that bubble up that we see reoccur are come out of the collective unconscious or collective conscious, whatever you want to think of it. That these are all in there, and some people can tune into them, and that's kind of what your creativity is, in a way, is tuning into certain frequencies of ideas.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. What? My kitty is still on the show. Sorry. Bad kitty.
But yeah, David Lynch, yeah, there's another one. I mean, if anybody wants to take a full course on Masters of Esoteric, watch all of his stuff from Eraserhead on.
Totally.
A lot of good stuff.
Crazy dude. So, so I was going to ask you what new stuff you're working on, but you said it was all the pie stuff, so I won't go there again. And that's the only question I had left. Nish, are you still alive?
Yeah, I'm flowing with y'all.
Okay. In a good way.
In the best of ways.
Not ant flow, right?
I was wondering if we had questions from the audience and all that.
Oh, right. That's what I forgot.
Did I give everybody pass out and log off or what?
Oh, God, no. We've got 135 people watching. No, I'm kidding. It's
we're going to see if anyone has questions for you, and then
13 people.
But I wanted to add just in back in the earlier dreams that we were talking about, had you ever when you're in them, and even the fantastical ones, is there a sense of time of day? Do you ever get a sense of timing in them?
Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't think of it, but I would say that I could evaluate, when I thought that the end of the world was happening, it was like afternoon. When I was in the bedroom at night, yeah, I mean, I would say everything. Yeah, like, good sense of time. Typically, it's at night when it comes to like the more horrific type dreams. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought so. When I always write notes, but I noticed I didn't make any notes on you mentioning time of day. So I wanted to at least get that cleared up.
Yeah, no, I definitely, there was a time dimension to it. Yeah.
All right, I'm good. I never look at the chat, so I don't know what Jerry's.
I'm just getting people links to James's new site. Okay, so a question from Greatest Potential. Hello, Greatest Potential. Oh, by the way, thank you everyone who's in the live chat. I'm not going to read them all. The question is, any key comic books for you? What were your what key comic books stand out or, key in your life?
Well, Bone was a big one. I don't know if you guys ever read Bone.
Never heard of it.
Pretty good one, dealing with multiple dimensions and whatnot. Batman, of course, for me.
Right.
I would say
it's a
Spider-Man. Yeah. Big, yeah. I mean, I really, of recent, I would say the DC stuff is like amazing. Get into the idea of like the Dark Knights, metal, multiverses, collective unconsciousness. This idea of Bruce Wayne being like the underpinning of existence. I mean, there's so many Gnostic threads going on out there. Those guys at DC right now are like phenomenal. So anyway,
they're amazing. They are amazing.
Did you see the they put out a movie last year called Justice League Dark?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, good one.
I liked it too. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, multiple times.
It was hilarious. It was very esoteric. That was one thing. There was like so much weird shit, and I'm like, wow. But what I want to say, as Batman encountered these supernatural things, he would look at it, he would observe it, and he would go, Yeah. That was his line for like the first 3/4 of the show. Yeah. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, he was good. It was good.
Oh, on this, what do you think? Do you watch the series Gotham that has been out the last few years?
I haven't been able to keep up with that one. I've been trying to keep up with all the Netflix Marvel stuff, but Gotham has kind of fallen to the side. I've heard good things.
I actually love it. I know people that really couldn't get past that first season or first two, and
I thought it got canceled. or something.
No,
Something
it's still
happened.
going, and I find it absolutely remarkable. There's so much juicy underpinnings there, and it's maintained all the darkness and all those weird esoteric subplots. And I mean, just looking at the back sets when they're in either sets, there's just stuff. It's just plastered full of all the juicy good stuff. And so I'm a fan, definitely, and it's only gotten better. That's what I have to say.
I remembered one thing I wanted to add to my rant over there. The character of John Constantine that was portrayed in the film Constantine was originally created by Alan Moore.
Oh, yeah.
And
Something, right?
Pardon?
Is that Swamp Thing?
I think so.
Where he created him? Yeah.
And they extracted the character, whatever movie company it was, and made that movie completely without his knowledge, I think he said, and definitely without his blessings. But it's nothing like what the character was supposed to be, or is like even. But yeah,
and if the listener is still on there about the comic books, check out Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. I mean, it's amazing. That was mind blowing. That kind of material in a comic book.
Have you ever flown in a dream with your body only?
I have not.
All right. Have you ever looked into the history of the Indian mound you mentioned earlier?
I have, yes. Actually, just south of us, it's like the giants, the red-headed giants. If you look up old Wisconsin newspapers from like the turn of the century, they dug up 10-foot, 11-foot skeletons, right? They were scattered all over southern Wisconsin. God knows how many other skeletons were found by like farmers and whatnot in this area and just destroyed. But I don't know, it's a weird area. You look into the idea of like the copper trade that went down to like Latin America, Southern America, place that Nish had mentioned, like Aztlan, right? I mean, the idea that there were this group of white-skinned cannibals that terrorized all these Native Americans in this area. I had no idea what was going on back then, but definitely different than what we're taught in school. And Wisconsin is Iowa.
Oh yeah, and Suzanne's saying Egypt as well. Those red-headed giants got around, the Nephilim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll never know, right? I mean, somebody knows, but nobody's going to like share that exactly what happened.
You know what? I don't think anybody knows.
You don't think?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Not even the Smithsonian, Jerry, where everything seems to disappear.
Yeah, I mean,
who knows? But I doubt it. I mean, if people have this information, it's going to leak out. That's the way I look at things. And
but some of the stuff like like specifically like the giants that have been found around Wisconsin and Iowa, with those Aztlan mounds and stuff. Mm-hmm. That stuff
and Grand Canyon giants too.
Well, I'm just talking about the ones that were around when I was young. It was talk, and in that area, and the old timers always had stories about them. Anyone that had farm family, and it was in the papers. There'd be a farmer plowing a field and come across these big bones, and it hit the papers, and so. And then, the Smithsonian would come in and wrap that up, and that doesn't exist. And then, people like Scott Wolker from Minnesota have been doing their best to expose this. I think there's some narrative that is intentionally being washed over. I don't know what's known, but I know that they're saying now, they had been saying for the majority of my life that stuff didn't exist. And yet there's old reel papers on reel with the photos and old timer farmer stories and families.
There's that fantastic illustration from the Battle of Kandahar with the Air Force, with the dead giant.
Oh, what story is that?
No, it's. I'll show you later. I'll get the link.
You roboted the whole time.
Oh, I said there's the whole story about the Battle of Kandahar with the giants.
Oh yes,
the Air Force or Marines or whatever the hell it was, Navy SEALs.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to like the Native American question, even down by Esalen, people say that there's like a pyramid beneath that lake. It's a Lake Mills, Wisconsin. And there's pyramids there. Actually, I'm hoping to do this summer. I got on Steam It finally.
I'm on Steam It. Jerry's on Steam It.
And it's a total scam.
Yeah,
But write it while you can. It's great.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to like visit. Nick Redford had written about the idea of the Mothman up by. It's about 30 minutes north of us. It's called Trempealeau Mountain, and it's kind of on the Mississippi River. But what he didn't write about was the fact there are like two pyramids, like within 2 miles of that location where this Mothman creature's been seen, and nobody knows what the history of that is. I mean, you talk people up in this little rural community, nobody knows. They think, maybe Native American, maybe it was like farmers like messing around, but there are two legitimate pyramids, two earth mounds, earthworks that are up there that nobody has any idea where they came from. So again, this whole area is just ripe with Native American mysticism and effigy mounds and whatnot. I'm in a lucky part of the country, honestly, to experience that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great and it's beautiful up there, especially, I know as cheesy as the Dells are, there's some really interesting stuff going on up there with the rocks.
Pun there.
What?
Cheesy Dells.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, no pun intended. But it is totally cheesy. It really is.
You could eat.
The Dells. All right. I think we're out of questions. Are you out of questions? I think we're out of questions.
Yeah.
James.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been awesome talking to you. Fantastic. So thank you. I'm so appreciative for you doing this for us. And
do you have anything to plug?
Yeah.
Well, I would plug my website, but I'm currently under an SSL certificate lag, so everybody that visits it thinks that their credit card is going to be compromised, even though I don't require a credit card. But if people want to visit it, it's called sagesigma.com. Again, there's going to be like a warning for the next 8 days, but
actually it works fine.
Lots of Gnosticism, Gematria.
It works fine if you don't put HTTPS. FYI.
Okay. Leave comments. There's a pretty good section of comments and feedback. People are, really get into the Gnostic stuff. So I don't know. I'm just figuring it out, and maybe over the course of the next 20 to 30 years, if I'm lucky to live that long, I'll put something together that makes sense. But I'm kind of wandering through the abyss, as it were, and seeing where things take me.
Yes, we all are. Stay on the line after,
don't hang up
for a little bit after. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been great having you join us. We appreciate you listening. Be sure to turn it. I cannot talk tonight. Be sure to tune in next week when we have Trish Gelder, the intuitive spiritual numerologist. She's awesome. And I'm sure many of you in chat know who I'm talking about. So that's all for tonight. Have a good one. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.